And welcome to Capital Talk, a program we hope will have an impact on the future of Kenya. Now, more than ever, I'm Jeff Kuneng. Now, for the rest of this week, we are dedicating it to the first anniversary since the promulgation of the new constitution. That's right, that date is coming up on August the 27th. And we want to do a report card check, find out where we've come, how far we've come, what are the challenges, successes, failures. We're going to have a whole host of experts on the bench. So, folks, you're going to enjoy the rest of this week. And we're beginning with a bang, folks, because the man on the bench today, whew, unless you're living on planet Mars, you would know that there's a tiff. Yes, I call it a tiff, but it's probably even uglier between himself and his former boss. He dedicated his entire life for the last 3.5 years to the Prime Minister. In fact, in his own words, he said he worked as a slave, working 110% for him. And then an incident happened, whether it was an article he wrote or whatever it is that he did, he found himself out in the cold. Maybe the PM's advisors thought he was getting too close or too powerful. So now he's out in the cold and he's insisting he did nothing wrong. Folks, it's going to be a cracker today, so sit back for the man with two names of the same kind, as in Miguna Miguna. My brother.
Thank you.
Good to see you, man.
Yes.
Welcome. And, you know, I don't know whether to commiserate or what the word is, but it's been pretty ugly, hasn't it?
Well, you could call it that. Yeah.
You feel slighted? Is that what it is? Slighted or just?
I think it's more than a slight. Yeah. In fact, I feel like I've been assassinated. That's the way I feel. I feel like my life, my career, my character, my reputation, what I have lived for throughout my life, the dreams, the aspirations, the ideals, have just been assassinated for absolutely no reason.
No,
and it feels very, very bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess to add insult to injury, according to the articles that you've been writing, is that the information was released in the press electronically, through text, through whatever, through social media, and you weren't told.
Actually, according to some of my friends, they saw the information on Twitter and Facebook by 11 o'clock on the 4th of August. At that time, I was attending a strategic retreat for the party, which I had been invited to. That same night, the night of the 3rd, before I traveled to Naivasha, the PM sent me work to do. I did that work until 2 o'clock in the morning and submitted it to the PM and then left for Naivasha. I go to Naivasha and then after lunch I start seeing texts that were curious. So I respond to one and the guy tells me, the reporter, that I'm suspended. I was shocked because before I took my holiday on the 6th of August, first of all, the PM is the one who gave me the holiday. He's the one who gave me leave. I report directly to the PM, not to the PS. And I took leave on the 6th to go get my children who are studying abroad. I come back with the children on the 10th. Before I do that, the PM invites me to accompany him to Juba, South Sudan, for the independence celebrations.
Which you did?
Which I did. Then I came back on the 9th, the same day. The following day I traveled to Canada. Came back and was on a holiday when I got this invitation to go to Naivasha. Nothing happened between the time I took holiday to the time they made this announcement to the media. All I was getting every day, even though I was on holiday, was work, which I continued to do because that's the way, the nature of our work, is that if you get a request from your boss that you should prepare this memo, prepare this speech, do this and that, you do it. And I did it with dedication. So nobody has told me what happened. Nobody has given me any explanation or reason. The letter that they released scandalously has not contained any particulars about dates, about places, about people, of the allegations that they're making.
Yeah.
This thing about the contract is really nonsensical because I got appointed on the 6th of March 2009 through a letter by the head of the civil service on instructions from the president, of course after consultation with the Prime Minister, to be appointed as advisor coalition affairs and joint secretary of the Permanent Committee on the Management of Coalition Affairs. I was, and I have been, the counterpart of Professor K24. The terms were agreed on at a meeting that we held on the 6th of March, and the terms were identical to K24's terms. When the letter came, the letter of appointment, they had changed the terms. So he told me to write back to him if there was an issue. So I wrote back to him and told him these were the terms we agreed on. In fact, he requested me to have those terms relayed to the PS at the PM's office, so that the PS at the PM's office could write to him, so that the letter then would accurately reflect what we had discussed. I wouldn't have known what K24 was earning if they had not told me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known what benefits and allowances he was getting if they had not told me. So they told me at the meeting. In fact, they took out the pay slip of K24 and gave it to me and told me copy it down and then go and put it down on a memo so that we can capture it.
Did they capture it?
They did not. Oh. So when they brought the contract, 1 year later, the contract was not brought immediately. I was working throughout, no contract except the letter. But you know, a contract in law is the meeting of the mind. It does not have to be in writing. A contract does not have to be in writing. That's what people don't understand. So once there was an offer of employment, an acceptance by me, and a consideration, payment, that they said they were going to give me for the work that I was going to do, that's it. There is something in law, equal pay for equal work. Me and Professor Kibwana, we've been doing equal work. You cannot then pay us differently, because then you'd be discriminating against me.
Correct.
On what basis? And there has been no basis. As a matter of fact, the Prime Minister has written to the head of civil service saying I should be paid like K24. So that shouldn't have been an issue. And that has been going on for the last more than 3 years. Okay. I've been working.
Okay, let's come back to the Prime Minister, who recently said in a, I think in a function, that what's happened to you is normal. You know, and don't politicize it. Those are his words. Do not politicize it. It's a normal procedure.
I think that is an insult to the intelligence of Kenyan people and to my intelligence. Because first of all, it is not normal that you would fire your personal advisor. I mean, I'm at the top of the bureaucracy in terms of hierarchy. Yeah. I was offered job group V, which is at the very top, which is the same job group as Mudaura. So you don't fire someone like that through the media. I would have expected that if there was going to be any change, that at least he owe me a duty of care and courtesy, human decency. Just call me in and tell me, this is what has happened, this is what I'm proposing, and you don't have any options. So then I could exercise whatever options I felt I was granted by law. Yeah. Or he could tell me, we would like you to resign. They could have done all kinds of things. We could have done it very quietly in a civilized manner, the way modern democratic systems are managed. This is a person who is supposed to represent change, real change, in terms of good governance, in terms of respect for human rights, in terms of respect for the rule of law, in respect and upholding the Constitution. And here I am, being subjected to what you would call the most barbaric kind of treatment imaginable. You would expect this in Gestapo Germany. You don't expect this in modern Kenya.
And he does this to his personal advisor? I mean, does that make sense?
And then, not just that, they release this letter to the media. The letter gets to my office after 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. It's sealed and stamped top secret. They tell the staff they're not supposed to open it. I am in Naivasha. So, and the letter gets to me the following day after 2 o'clock, 2 p.m. After I come back from Naivasha. Yeah. That's more than 24 hours.
Correct.
But it's all over the news. It's all over TV. It's all over radio. They're reading from the letter. So clearly they had a copy. That top secret letter is being read. And the journalist from the Star who told me he got the letter, told me I got the letter. Yeah, and he wanted to read it to me. So I told him, no, don't read it. I want to see the letter myself. Yeah. Because I'm not going to react to something I have not seen. But it gets even worse. Before they deliver the letter to my office, after 5 o'clock, about 3 or something, they deliver termination of contract letters to all my employees. The messenger, the secretary, and my personal assistant. Now, if they're looking for votes, I've heard Jakoyo make statements about looking for votes and whatnot. My personal assistant is from Cumberland. My secretary is from Western Province. And my messenger is from Nyanza. Now, who is losing votes? Because these people have not done anything, even if I was alleged to have done something.
You could have kept them.
Yes. And these people have families, they have obligations, they had no notice, there are no reasons given for their termination. They're just told, pack up and go. Then they do worse. They change the locks on my door, my office doors. I have personal effects. You know, when you're working, you have books, you have literature, laptop, you have things that are yours. They have not returned those ones.
Because you can't get in.
I can't get in. Then they suspend me without pay, and it is indefinite. That is not known to law. There is no date when it begins. There's no date when it ends. They say there are probe or investigations. They have not named who is investigating me, because as you realize, if the police are investigating you, you can go to the police and say, hey, I'm here. Tell me what you want.
Present yourself.
And then, yes, they have not said what it is, who is investigating, what they are investigating, who the complainants are, because unless the Prime Minister is the complainant, you would have to tell me what I did.
And speaking of Prime Minister, you have reached out to him, haven't you?
I did.
You've reached out to him?
I did.
And he's not taking your calls?
I have sent him a text. I had called him the day that this is the first one I called. When the journalist called me, I tried to reach him. But I understood that he was at a function. So then I reached his spokesman, who told me, treat it as rumors. So at first I was actually treating it as rumors until the press started calling me and texting me. Then I said, no, this is not rumors. So then what do? You're just there. Nobody is explaining anything. Nobody has explained anything. I mean, I think it is barbaric. That's what I call it.
I think it's malicious as well, Miguna.
It is very malicious. And you know, I feel quite funny because on the one hand, there was no disagreement between me and the Prime Minister. We have not disagreed. We have never really disagreed seriously, not on a personal note. I mean, as an advisor, of course, there are things you can advise on and that are ignored. He has that prerogative. So I'm not saying everything I say he must do. I would be naive and actually foolish to expect that. But this has been going on, the relationship, cordial, respectful, professional relationship. I have discharged my obligations. I think Kenyans can judge my record during the constitutional review process.
You've been extremely loyal, Miguna, I must say. Extremely loyal, to a T.
I've been loyal to him. I've been loyal to the party. I've been loyal to the ideals that I believe are progressive and that represent the new dawn in this country. And I have not wavered. And I'm not going to start wavering now.
But now you get a kick in the face, Miguna. They've kicked you in the face, and they're continuing to kick you by ignoring you.
And spat on me through Jakoyo and the rest making ridiculous statements. I wondered, Jakoyo is chief whip of the party. He does not work for the Prime Minister's office. He has never been my supervisor. So is he talking as the Prime Minister's cousin? Is this now a collegial premiership? Is he also a Prime Minister? Because I didn't know I was working for Jakoyo Midio. I didn't know I was working for the Odinga family, the larger family.
Correct.
I knew I was working for the Prime Minister as the Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya.
Yes.
But now you hear the claims and they're contradictory. One day saying this, the following day saying the other. And the two are not consistent.
And what about those people who are saying, oh man, he's crying sour grapes. Miguna is just sour grapes.
Listen, I would tell those people this. Miguna is a human being like Raila Odinga. When Raila was detained, how did he feel? When Raila's wife and family were kicked out of their house at Kenya High by Moi, how did he feel?
He's doing the same to you.
He's doing worse to me. Because at least at that time, it was claimed that he did something to overthrow the government, whether false or true. But me, what is he alleging I did to him? See what I mean? So it's one thing, even me, I was subjected to torture illegitimate, unlawful detention, and then I went into exile by the Moi regime. So at least you can say, even if you feel angry or whatever towards that person, that is justified. But here's a situation where you've dedicated your life, your professional career, and your skills to serving the interest of a person and his ideals, and the ideals that you believe in. And then he kicks you in the face with no reason.
Oh, man.
And then he does not talk to you.
On top of that.
And there was nothing that happened.
It doesn't add up, Miguna.
It does not add up.
It doesn't add up.
So you guys should ask him what happened.
You know we will, Miguna. I want to take a break and talk about that after the break. And also, a year into the promulgation, I know you were there actively during the run-up to that referendum and then the promulgation. And there was a feeling of joy and optimism and everything. Everyone felt great about being Kenyan. A year later, where are we? Let's talk about that after the break. Good grief, it's the man with two names of the same kind. Miguna Miguna. And he's on fire, folks. Believe me when I tell you. This man feels slighted, angry, everything, you name it, all the adjectives you can put together. And at the end of the day, he said he had dedicated his entire life to one cause, and he's been kicked out onto the curb. Whew, that's cold, folks, it's cold. Just like this day, it's cold. But don't even think of going away because the bench is warming up. Back in a moment. And welcome back to Capital Talk. It's going to be an amazing week, folks, because it's 1 year to the day almost to the promulgation of the new Constitution. So we're talking to folks who know a thing or two about this Constitution. Yes, people like Miguna Miguna, who's a barrister, a solicitor, political analyst. He was the personal advisor to the Prime Minister on coalition affairs. So he was very close, or rather deep, in the corridors of power. But now he's been kicked out onto the curb. And he's not a happy chappy. Sit back. Miguna. So, okay, a year into the promulgation. A year. There's been some successes. There's some good things happening in this country. And you've been writing about them. You've been writing extensively about them. But some things that are a little lacking. Like, for instance, Attorney General. Do we have to wait till the last minute until that person is appointed?
Jeff, the things lacking are more fundamental than that. I see the things lacking are more structural and institutional than that. In terms of institutional restructuring, that has not happened at all.
Not even the judiciary trying to find it?
Well, you see, we've appointed a Chief Justice, a Deputy Chief Justice, and Supreme Court judges who are all still stuck up in court. But the institution, the judiciary, has not been restructured. Appointing individuals to the old structures is not going to change anything unless the culture, the institutional mode of operation, the philosophy of the institution changes, shifts. That has not happened. Nothing has happened to retraining, for example, reorientation of the judiciary, so that service and justice is at the center of the judiciary. So that has not happened. When you go to the police, it has not happened at all. In fact, a lot of Kenyans do not know what the National Police Service Act contains. It has not been debated and interrogated publicly. The draft I saw and commented on was very flawed through and through, and I'm not sure how the amendments that went there. We have not had the National Police Service Commission formed, because that would be the beginning, a civilian-led National Police Service Commission with members who have integrity, who have competence, who have the new orientation for the implementation of the new constitution. That has not happened. So the entire police force is still exactly the way it was before. Look at other structures. Look at the legislature. Other than the live broadcast of debate in the House, what has changed? Really nothing. And if you see, with the actions they took, trying to claw back on the constitutional provisions of paying tax, then you can see nothing has changed. From the top to the bottom, really, of the legislature. Look at the executive. Nothing significant has changed. I tried to impress upon the CIC that they needed not to have bills processed through the executive, because as a constitutional body, it should coordinate and supervise the drafting of legislation between the Law Reform Commission and the Attorney General's office, and then take legislation, the draft legislation, after consultation and wide input from the public, to the Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee, the parliamentary body. Yeah. This parliamentary body would look at it and then present it, table it in Parliament for debate and passage. There's no need to go through the executive again, because if you realize, the Law Reform Commission is an executive entity. It is actually housed at the Ministry of Justice, and the appointees there are executive appointees. The Attorney General is part of the executive. He sits in the cabinet, he advises the government, he's executive. So why do you have legislation again go through the executive, then go to the cabinet, then back to Parliament? The Constitution has not provided power and authority to the Minister of Justice, the Cabinet Committee, and the Cabinet at all in drafting of legislation.
That's why the delays.
That is why there are delays. That is why they are mangling legislation. That is why you find that they pass legislation that then need amendment. If this thing was done properly, we would not need amendments. We would not need people complaining. Why haven't they sorted out the date of the next election? Why haven't they formed the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission? Why is it taking so long? To tell you the truth, in many countries, such as the United States, when you get yourself in this position, you do what is called a guillotine. You have a bunch of legislation brought to the House and passed in through one procedure in the House. You don't have to do them one by one. There is no reason, after you have had the legislation drafted and there is public approval, you pass them, institute the institutions, and let us move forward.
So bottom line, the air has been let out of this balloon that we promulgated on August 27, 2010, isn't it? The air has been let out. That feeling of euphoria is long gone.
I think the people are getting a bit disappointed, seriously, and they're getting disappointed legitimately. And I think the problem is this. You couldn't have expected the Attorney General that presided over the culture of impunity for 20 years to be the one superintending the promulgation. You couldn't have. Because he can't. He doesn't know what change means. You couldn't expect the head of the police, who has served in this police force, say for the last 20 years, to be responsible for changing the culture in policing. You couldn't expect the judiciary that has presided over the rot and the corruption, the same judiciary, unreformed, to preside over a renewed, reinvigorized, reformed judiciary. You needed a shake-up from outside. That is why the appointment of Willie Mutunga was a breath of fresh air. But one person was not going to do it.
Yeah. That's not enough.
And that's the problem. That's not enough.
Yeah. So what would we go moving forward? I mean, what would you give, let's say, the legislature? What would you give Parliament a grade from A to F for the last year, their performance?
They're at E. Parliament is at E. Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In other words, they leave a lot to be desired.
You see, you are paid to do a job. And if you fail to do that job, you should be judged accordingly. So what is it that they have done which surpasses our expectations? Because, you know, passing legislation as required, that's their job. Yeah. Passing competent legislation is their job. Many of them are not trained, not just to understand legislation. They don't understand governance.
They're clueless.
Completely clueless.
And I remember in school, a grade of E used to mean well below average.
Well below average.
Yes.
That is not to say that there are no legislators in the House who are very, very good. Yeah. People like, in my view, somebody like Ababu Namwapa is very good, above average, excellent in fact. Yep. But there are those who are at F, the majority of them. So then they pull the grade down.
Yes, to the E. Yes. All right. Moving along, the president, how would you grade him, Miguna, in the last year?
Well, that one I would pass. I'm passing that one because I don't think it's up to me to grade him. I think it's up to Kenyans to grade him, looking entirely the entire tenure from 2003 up to now, unless you wanted me only to grade the coalition government.
Okay, let's do that while we're at it.
The
coalition government.
They're at D.
Which is below average.
Below average. And I work there, so I know. At D.
So D also means disappointment.
Of course. Of course.
Oh. Miguna, you're not holding anything back.
No, because, I mean, let's be honest. And I think this one they would agree. There is biting hunger and starvation in Kenya. That we cannot turn back and ignore. You see, that's the first priority of a government, is to make sure your people are well fed, they're secure, they're happy.
It's in the Constitution, for Christ's sake.
It is in the Constitution.
Yes.
So we know that we are begging. Yet, as you can see this year, we've had good rains. It was the same last year. So there was no reason why Kenyans had to starve. Look at corruption. Most of the time, the corruption that is not punished is corruption that cost the country hundreds of billions of Kenya shillings, enough to feed us all more than 100 times. So even if we had a problem with the environment, because we are not technologically advanced and therefore still rely on rain for agriculture, then we would have enough money to buy food, enough foodstuff to feed our people.
And not to beg.
And not to beg. And this money is in people's pockets. And we know, if you go to Anglo Leasing, you go to Goldenberg, you go to Triton,
maize,
you go to Kenren, you go to Maize, you go, every single thing, and nobody has been called to account. Is that good governance? Is that justice to the people of Kenya? Because to me, that is the worst criminal activity any government can partake in. Worse than all these other, robbers running around in town. And that the government has not done anything about.
So the coalition has been a bad marriage from the start, hasn't it?
Oh, I wouldn't say a bad marriage, because there was necessity to come together so that you could bring stability and peace after the crisis. But you would have expected that even though you're antagonistic at the beginning, you set the ground rules. And I can tell you, these things will come out later. I drafted a coalition agreement that was never signed. I did myself.
That was never signed?
That was never signed. If that had been signed, the coalition agreement, forget about the Motula one, the one we did after my appointment, and that was agreed on largely by both sides, you'd not have had this kind of shenanigans, because the government would have been structured, would have been running as a government. Right now, there is casual ad hoc proclamations. The left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. Everybody is undermining everybody else, and nothing gets done. And you have to know this. This government is full of lethargy and laziness. The bureaucracy in Kenya is not oriented on the culture of work. There is zero work ethic. People come work late, they drink tea all day, they gossip, they read papers, they talk to their friends on the phone, and they don't work. That is overwhelmingly what happens from ministry to ministry. And the Prime Minister's office is no exception.
Yeah. Maybe that's why they didn't like you, Miguna, because you worked. You had the work ethic from where you were growing up.
Well, I don't know. They have to say why they didn't like me. Because if you have worked somewhere for 3 years and you worked well and you didn't hear any complaint, then you can't say people didn't like you. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes, I did more than I was supposed to do. I did things that was not within my work description. But it is because other people were not doing it and I was told to do them. I can't complain. That was an opportunity to be able to learn and to be able to do something.
Yeah.
And I'm proud I did it. Yes.
Can't leave you without asking you to grade your Prime Minister, your former colleague, your former friend. Grade him, A to F.
Because I've not graded the President, I'm not going to grade the Prime Minister. You can make your own judgment based on my grade to the coalition government.
Yes.
Yes.
Just add on to that or just refer to that.
But that's what I would say.
Okay,
I don't want to be unfair to him.
Sure. What does Miguna Miguna do now?
Well, Miguna Miguna will do what Miguna Miguna has to do. Right now, I have to put food on the table for my children. So that's priority number one, and my family. Miguna Miguna will continue writing, will continue involved in the democratization process, which still wants and demands a lot of work. Miguna Miguna will write a book. Yes.
An expose?
Miguna Miguna will write a book. That you can take to the bank.
Miguna Miguna, thanks for coming over, man.
Thank you.
And keep writing, because it's important.
Yes.
We need all kinds, man. And you are up there. You're one of a kind.
Thank you.
Well done, brother. Don't move, don't move, don't move. Same name twice. Miguna Miguna. I tell you, breaking it down. Yes, coalition government. 1 year after the promulgation. You've seen the grades. You do the math. Miguna Miguna, believe me, this man is not going anywhere soon. Do not write him off. In fact, you write him off at your own peril. That's right. What a guest. What a show. Oh, what an explosive week it's going to be, folks. You simply cannot find guests like Miguna Miguna anywhere else but right here on the bench on the award-winning station K24, where we are, yes, even in times of Miguna Miguna, we are still all Kenyan.
All Kenyan, all the time.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you.
Capital Talk is filmed at Fairmont, the Norfolk.